depending on where you are tuning in from. Thank you so much for joining us here. I'm Grace Mirren. I'm the programs coordinator here at the MAA. And we are so excited to kick off our inaugural first event of our fall 2022 virtual programming season. And we're so excited that it is with our new partners, the Rfam group. I'm so excited for everyone here to learn more about them and hear from our amazing presenters. The presenters we have today are Brittany Galb, Michael Johnson, and Ashka Dalal. And so this should be a wonderful, wonderful session. And I will let them take it away.
All right. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm so grateful to be here with everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about developing your career as an undergraduate math major, and it's advice from the organizers of Rfam, as mentioned before. So first, going to mention the recording has already begun. The MAA recording policy is recording this event. Retain the right to show it again and distribute it. By participating, you're agreeing that your contributions, text and chat, video if it's enabled, becomes part of the recording. And the recording is available by request to register participants. Please email programs@maa.org afterwards to get a copy of that if you'd like. So we are going to have a section of this presentation just for questions and answering. This is going to be used through the Q&A feature here in Zoom webinar. So you can ask questions, you can upvote the questions that you feel like need to be answered, or you feel like a similar question, something that you have. And you can also make it anonymous as well if you don't want to have us know exactly who it is or anything like that. Yeah, we'll set a time aside at the end of our presentation to answer questions, about 20 minutes or so. And one question I know will be given is that slides will automatically be sent to you after the webinar if you're registered. And so there's going to be a lot of links. So if there's something that you missed, then you'll be able to look at it later. So first, I'm going to introduce our organization. Rfam stands for the Online Undergraduate Resource Fair for the Advancement and Alliance of Marginalized Mathematicians. We use the term marginalized backgrounds to include, but it's not limited to students considered to be part of an underrepresented racial or ethnic minority group in mathematics, LGBTQ+ students, female students, community college students, first generation students, low income background students, and so on, that the representation isn't quite there, or the groups themselves are marginalized. This is a virtual where we put on a virtual and free conference that welcomes all and is especially aimed at undergraduate mathematics students from marginalized backgrounds. It's student created and led. So this year we're partnered with the MAA and supported by a NSF grant to try and distribute this information and create a nice community. And there'll be more about that later as well. Oh, it's on the slide. So this is the thing that I mentioned, bullet point, it was in my notes as well. But yeah, it's talking more about the marginalized backgrounds. Us as organizers represent some sections of these identities and cross sections. And so some of us have experiences with the different challenges that come with going into mathematics and academia. And that's set at the bottom as well. So this is a picture of us at the end of the conference. We're happy that a lot of the work came to fruition last year. So the goals of the conference are to inform students about resources and opportunities that help them develop their careers, represent people as models as well through our stories, people who have been through these experiences and come out in different career paths, and access to networking opportunities. So our goal of this webinar is to make the most out of not only our conference coming up in less than a month or just over a month, but also to get the most out of all conferences that you attend, that you have some a skill set that you can draw from to try and help further your career. You can go to this website later on or during, if you so choose, to learn more about our organization and our conference. I'm Michael, he, him pronouns. I'm currently a graduate student at Indiana University. I found Rfam in 2020, so this is the third iteration this year, 2022. I didn't really feel like I had a community. It's in the middle of the more shut down era of COVID. I was doing classes over Zoom in mathematics, and non-traditional age student and community college transfer student and low income background. And I really didn't feel like one, when we got back to campus, there was no one I knew. And also I just like, didn't feel like there's any community for me. So when I saw this conference available on a a blog, I joined, and it was a fantastic experience for me. So I mentioned a little bit about my background. I started community college like 12, 13 years ago. Took that long to get my bachelor's degree as well, going in and out of school. But mathematics curriculum wise, I've participated in Polymath Junior, which is an online REU that you can, anyone can be part of, not just strictly US citizens, which we'll talk about more later. A directed reading program at Indiana University. I've worked as a research assistant, and also a seismic scholar, which is the Sloan Equity and Inclusion STEM introductory courses, is what seismic stands for, which they have a conference at IU right now. So I was participating in that earlier. So because of the networking, which we'll talk about, I have these opportunities. And I will pass it now to Ashka.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ashka. I go by any pronouns. I am currently a junior at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. I became an OURFAM organizer this year, but I attended the conference last year. My math background is that, well, I'm currently attending a small engineering school, but pursuing the bachelor's in mathematics. But in this past summer, I participated in the YSU Bump REU, and I'm going to present that research this weekend at a conference. I also worked as a Rose Prime mentor this past summer, which I will talk more about in my later section. And I'm currently a math tutor at the Rose-Hulman Learning Center.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brittany, and I'm currently a graduate student and NSF Graduate Research Fellow at Rutgers University. My pronouns are she, her. I've been an Rfam organizer since Rfam got started in 2020. In terms of my math background, I struggled through calculus in high school, and I never viewed myself as a math person. Then I attended a small liberal arts college where students rarely pursue math research careers. However, I discovered a love of proof-based math in my second year. And then I did an REU, which stands for Research Experiences for Undergraduates. I did these programs at Lafayette College and DIMAX. And then I did study abroad at Budapest semesters in math, and this past summer, an internship at NASA. One really important aspect of my experience has been forming connections with people and networking, which will be the next topic of this presentation. So here's a story that I would like to share with you that I'm calling Lucky Connections. I was a sophomore math major, and I'd only taken 4 college math courses and planned to apply to REU programs. I knew that I liked math. I knew that I wanted to do research, but I didn't really know what kind of research I could do or what kind of math topics really interested me. So I attended a local conference close to my school, which was similar to an MAA section meeting. At the conference, I met a math grad student who studied graph theory, and I knew nothing about graph theory. So I asked, what is graph theory about? Oops, there's a bit of a delay with our slides. Okay. So in this conversation with the grad student shared with me an introduction to graph theory and why it interested him. And this, of course, got me very interested too. Michael, if you could move the slide, I gave up control because there's a delay. Okay, thank you. So at the conference, I then saw a plenary talk about graph theory, and things kept rolling on in terms of my interest. So I applied to RU programs in graph theory and wrote about the conversation I had where I had made this connection, learned more, and the talk that I had seen. So you might be wondering, what was the outcome of this story? I was accepted to a couple of these RU programs. In particular, something that surprised me when I learned it later, a program with a professor who had done their PhD in graph theory with that plenary speaker who I had seen. I attended the RU and had an amazing time getting started on math research, writing a paper that got published, and not to mention I made an amazing group of friends that I still talk to every week. So what are the takeaways from this story that I want you to have? This is a quote by Dr. Barbara Oakley, who's written a famous book about study skills in math. She wrote that Lady Luck favors the one who tries. I think that this means you have the ability to create positive circumstances for yourself, such as by attending conferences and events like this one to meet many people and make connections. I feel like in my story, I was lucky, but also I had put myself in a circumstance where I could be lucky. Furthermore, these events inspired the Rfam crash courses. These are talks at our conference where you can learn about areas of math that are common to undergraduate research. So in some sense, we've made it easy for you. You don't necessarily need to find a conference to attend in person and see like a complicated technical talk. You can come to our conference and get an introduction. And maybe like me, you'll be able to write a detailed personal statement for a research program describing your interest that was inspired by these talks. The next story is the story of Rfam, called Supportive Connections. After her REU in the summer of 2020, Vanessa thought about what she wished she had known prior to applying and participating in an REU program. She was inspired by other STEM communities organizing to share resources. So she asked Lee and myself to help her organize a panel, and this is the idea that evolved into Rfam. And you might be wondering what this has to do with networking. In particular, it's how the five of us knew each other, even though most of us had never met in person. Vanessa met Lee through a friend when she was seeking advice about applying to RU programs. And she had met me through Facebook, where she posted on a math meme page celebrating her acceptance. Then Lee called upon Amari, a friend she had met before a talk at the joint math meetings. The way she told this story was that she heard Amari talking to a friend about a research program that she had attended, and then she turned around and introduced herself, and then they became friends. Then I called upon Alvaro, a friend who I had made at that RU program that I was discussing in the last story. So what are the takeaways from this story of supportive connections? After forming connections, my advice to you is to stay in touch by giving personal updates, offering collaboration or other opportunities, or requesting advice. These are things that the 5 Rfam organizers in 2020 had done for each other, and that's how we came together. Furthermore, the people you know likely know others who you should meet. And I think this story also exemplifies that, because each individual of this group didn't know the others, and they wouldn't have been able to put together this group by themselves. But through using the connections of other people, Rfam came together. The last story also involves Vanessa, and I've called it Genuine Connections. This is a story of Vanessa attending an online conference, where in a breakout room, she voiced frustration about a lack of research opportunities at her home institution. And she formed a connection with a professor who was at that conference in that breakout room. She told me that they talked more later on, and she was invited to join that professor's research group, which she said restored confidence that she had lost because of a previous negative experience. Furthermore, Vanessa shared with me that she's active on Twitter, social media, where she writes about her journey in STEM. And she said that a professor who she met through Twitter also gave her an opportunity. This opportunity was to audit a class that the professor was teaching. And taking this class ended up sending her in a totally new direction for grad school in a different STEM field. So what are the takeaways from Vanessa's story of genuine connections? This is how I feel about it. Networking can be a genuine process where you communicate what you need and what you are missing. There are lots of people out there in the world and in the math community who want to help you. And in certain circumstances, you might meet just the right person who wants to help you. So I would encourage all of the participants here today to attend the Rfam networking lunches, which we've set up for you to have similar experiences that the organizers had in terms of networking that was really impactful on our careers. So each day of the conference, there will be a networking lunch, and we will have Zoom breakout rooms with different titles, including themes that have to do with identities in math, such as first-generation college student experiences, and certain career stages or interests, for example, internships or careers in industry. In terms of what you can talk about at the networking lunch, here are some questions that I would encourage you to reflect on and to bring your thoughts on to the networking lunch. First, what joys, achievements, failures, or frustrations have you experienced as a math student? What questions do you have about opportunities that you would like to ask representatives of programs or people with more experience? What do you want or need help with in your career? We hope that the Rfam networking lunches, you will be able to meet people who can answer these questions, who can relate to you, and can help you with your career. Finally, I also have some advice about how to follow up from the networking lunches. My advice is to first, during the lunch, ask for an email address. And then the next day or the Monday after the conference, you can follow up with a short message to continue the connection. For example, you could write that it was great to meet you at the networking lunch on Saturday, and then say something about your conversation and what you got out of it. And I want you to keep in mind that networking can be a genuine process where you communicate how others can support you. For example, you could say something like, I would love to stay in touch as I work on my grad school applications, and see how they respond and if this person could be a potential mentor or a person who can help you throughout your career. Here are my final takeaways about networking. You don't need to be or feel accomplished before you start meeting people in your field. I think that many of these stories show that networking and making connections are how you gain access to opportunities. You don't need to build up your resume before you feel like you can start making connections. Finally, we encourage you to make genuine connections, call upon them for support, and create the circumstances for your own good luck. Next, I'll pass it to Ashka to discuss pursuing career building opportunities.
All right, so I will start by talking about the different opportunities that you can find in order to build your career. So there are lots of different, if this will allow me to flip this up. Okay. There are lots of different kinds of programs that you can go into and participate in order to build your career. So deciding which ones sound right for your ambitions and what you're interested in is kind of important. There are lots of different types which are listed here. So the first one that is especially common in math is the research programs, which are usually funded opportunities to work on a research project with a professional mathematician. These can be at your own institution or at another institution, and they're very helpful in exploring research as a possible career path. There are also study abroad programs where you can take specialized courses that are not offered at your school, but at other institutions. There are teaching and mentorship opportunities where you help students learn and you can sharpen your own skills in various math concepts. There are internships in which you work on projects with professional mentors, and that gives you an idea of what it's like to work in industry. There are institutional opportunities where you can work on a project, perhaps for credit at your own school, and short academic programs, which will dive into a new topic for a few weeks. So I'll start by talking a little bit more about research programs. Okay, so here is a list of a whole bunch of different research programs. There's institutional research, REUs, and then all of these links to other research programs that you can always go and look into in your own time. You can always just go into whatever search engine you're using and search for a school name and a math undergraduate research program and find out if that if a research program exists at one of at the given institution that you're looking at. Now, probably one of the most accessible or research programs is institutional research. So you can, a lot of your institutions have summer research grants, so you can be funded to do research over the summer into various topics, whether it's a topic decided by a professor or a topic that you came up with yourself. There are also professors at your institution who may have grants to fund undergraduate research. So they are specifically funded so they can work with undergraduates like you and do various research. You can also do informal study or research with a professor, and at some institutions, you can do this research for credit. So the way to find institutional opportunities is to just go and at least first read online and see what your institution says that they offer in terms of undergraduate research. And then you can always go to a professor and start talking about using those networking skills. You can start talking about things that you're interested in, the research that you might be interested in, and then the research that your professor does. And maybe see if there's some question or topic that you want to explore further by doing research. Next, one of the possibly most common are REUs, which stand for Research Experience for Undergraduates. These are usually summer programs that last around 6 to 10 weeks and are funded by the National Science Foundation or the NSA or other organizations. Usually you should be a sophomore or junior. There are a few REUs that are for freshmen, but those are less common. They're usually for US citizens or US permanent residents, and you usually have to have not finished your undergraduate degree by the time you're participating in the REU. There are also some funding restrictions, so that might decide the eligibility. But I, for example, did an REU over the summer, the YSU Bump REU program, and I researched graph theory, which is one of the topics that one of the advisors had prepared for the undergraduates who were coming to Youngstown State University to research. There were 2 other small groups. We were groups of 4, so there were 2 other small groups, and we were a total of 12 people. The 2 other groups were looking at the Google's PageRank matrix and the linear algebra and stochastic matrices and what they can do based on that. So they started looking into, I believe, rankings for snowboarders from the past Olympics, I believe. And then another group was looking at, was doing a statistical analysis on mass shootings in the United States. So these were all a variety of topics, from like pure math and graph theory to more applied math in the linear algebra of the PageRank system, and then the statistics of mass shootings in the United States. So there are lots of different ways to find REUs. There are lots of different sites that have lists of different REU programs that you could participate in. What I found most helpful is mathprograms.org, which is just a big website where it has a list of all the different math programs, not all of it, a lot of different math programs that you can participate in. And you can be like, I want to look at REUs in particular. And then through mathprograms.org, you can also find all of these REUs, and you can usually apply for those REUs through that website. There's also the NSF official government website, which lists a lot of the NSF funded REUs that you can apply to. And then a lot of different REU, just lists of possible REUs that you can apply to, compiled by many different people from a lot of different places. So next, I will talk about some study away or study abroad programs. Some of the most common are the Budapest semesters in math and the Budapest semesters in math education, as well as these others that were listed here. Like Brittany said, I believe Brittany mentioned that she participated in the Budapest semesters in math. That one's is when you can go to Budapest and learn math there in a completely, not necessarily a completely different, but in a new environment that allows you to broaden your horizons and get an idea of different areas of the world. But also you get to do math there, which is very cool. Oftentimes your institution will also have a study abroad program. So if you can go to that department and talk to them about what study abroad opportunities that they have, and go study abroad and learn new things in new places, it'll be very cool. So next I'll talk about internships. A lot of internships are usually done at laboratories, usually national laboratories, or there's the MIT Lincoln Laboratory or the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. These are opportunities to get experience doing math in industry, and they're not as common as they should be. So on here are some links to different laboratories that you can go to and apply for internships there. You can always also just search them up and see what national laboratories and what internships and projects you could find and work on, and apply to those. And if you're interested in it, you should apply to those, is what I'm trying to say. So next I'll talk about teaching and mentorship opportunities. So to start, there is the art of problem solving, where you can apply and become like a tutor or a teaching assistant there and help students through grade school like strengthen their own math skills. And you can help teach these students in these high school and elementary school math topics. There are also programs like Promise, the Ross Mathematics program, and Mathly, where these are basically summer math camps, and you can be a counselor there and help to teach these students, these high school students, about specific higher level math concepts. For example, the Ross Mathematics program, I believe, is a little more specifically geared towards number theory. So if you are interested in those topics and you feel like you know those topics, you can apply to these and go to where these camps are and work with high school students and strengthen both their math skills as well as your own at the same time. There are also a lot of different other teaching and mentorship opportunities. There are math circles that can be found in your region or online if you search for them. And then there can be smaller programs at your own school. So for example, at my school, we had Rose Prime this past summer where incoming freshmen came in and learned pre-calculus and strengthened their pre-calculus skills. And at the same time, I was there as a mentor to help them get an idea of the college experience, of what they can expect when they finally enter Rose, and strengthening their own math skills so they are ready for college level calculus. So your schools will likely have some programs where you can help to strengthen the skills of other students. Okay, yes. So once you've figured out what sort of program you want to participate in, you need to apply to be part of that program. So when you're trying to get help for applications, you should always ask students who have done this similar research and internships who are at your school, and they can help you out there. There are professors and recommenders that you can talk to, and they can guide you in what sorts of programs might be right for you and what you might include in your applications to be a competitive applicant. You can also contact past participants of the program that you're interested in. Oftentimes the programs themselves will mention some people who previously participated, or you can contact a director of one of those programs and ask them for a contact of a previous participant, and then you can talk to that participant and decide, well, get an idea of what they experienced and decide if that's the kind of experience that you want to also experience. There are also lots of different advice, like blog posts that include advice on applying to REUs usually in particular, but also anything that you're trying to apply to. And those can help you become what I'll talk about next, how to be a competitive applicant. So the biggest thing that you can do to be a competitive applicant is do well in your math courses. That's somewhat obvious, but also I think a little bit more importantly is making an impression on your recommenders. So finding people that and using those working skills to build good relationships with people so that you can ask them to recommend you for these opportunities. This can mean like going above and beyond in a class or on a project, or going to office hours, or just going and talking to a professor about their research interests and your research interests. And then those people can recommend you to programs and be the people who write letters of recommendations for programs. And especially if they have some connection with that program, that can help you a lot in your application. If you're applying to something that's specifically collaborative, it would be helpful to include in your personal statement something about how you've worked well on a team in the past. The organizers of Rfam have a blog post that they've posted, which has even more advice on how to be a competitive applicant, and then how to apply in general, especially to REUs, which I used in order to get my REU this past summer. It was really helpful. But above all, you should absolutely apply to something that you think is interesting, whether you feel like you're like exactly what they're looking for or not. You should apply because you might be, and you just don't feel like you are. You can surprise yourself as long as you try and go ahead and apply. So I will pass it off to Michael to talk about mentorship.
Hello all again. I'm going to talk about finding a career mentorship. So first, going to talk about how to find someone as a mentor. They're hanging out around everywhere. So from what was mentioned before, like some opportunities that you attend and are part of, to the different people you network at conferences with, that these can be people who are research advisors or instructors that you've had, or directors of programs, or even graduate students. That you look for someone who that's working in the career path or in the program that you are interested in, and they have likely been in your position where they have to apply to graduate school and then talk to people, get letters of recommendation, that they may have advice for you to work towards those goals. Using the networking skills that you may have practiced at different conferences during lunches or such. Academia and research fields are much smaller than you think, that people can be almost very insular once you get into a specific field of study, let's say in mathematics, and then you keep going, then you realize, oh, there's only 5 people doing this and they all know each other and they hang out with each other. So it's that they can branch out and reach out to these networks that you may not know about, as long as you kind of get your foot in the door and talk to one person. And then there's a few programs that also will help match you with people in mathematics, such as the AWM Mentor Network and Math Alliance, where they have a more robust, mentor network and like a program to go along with mentoring to try to develop your academic career. I'll say that for me, graduate student was one of my mentors that was, just a year ahead of me or 2 years ahead of me, that had been going through the application process, who to talk to in my department about, applying to a degree, applying for, graduate degree. And it's just, trying to find the next right thing is sometimes hard, and just finding someone that's available to you that, knows what you're going through is very helpful. And some advice that I've heard in the past that I really cling to and use myself is finding more than one mentor. That if you get into let's say an undergraduate research program, and then you have a director that, or an advisor that's, over your shoulder, and then you talk to them about everything from the identities you share to, the jobs you're applying for or your curriculum, they may not be experts on all those fields. That and they may not give you the best advice, because they may know only one particular thing that you're dealing with. So having multiple people for different aspects of your life is really helpful, because you're more than just math, you're more than just your career, you're more than just how you identify, you're all these things at once. And so it's good to have other people in your life to help you with that. So some examples of different aspects are like a field of study, your career goals, identities, or related interests. Field of study, it's good to have someone who may know what papers or books to read while you're taking these courses. They may be your research advisor as well, but also having your career goals may be different than what your research advisor has. Maybe you don't necessarily want to do the research they're doing, but you want to work through the curriculum and get the degree that can help springboard you into either like doing outreach in mathematics or communications, or working in industry. These are all possibilities that you may not be able to have a network from someone who's worked exclusively in academia. Having someone with similar identities, knowing the background, and not just sympathy but empathy, and having gone through mathematics in different ways than what is like the prescriptive way that people have these different experiences, and, it's not one size fits all. So I know when I came back to go finish my bachelor's degree, I didn't really have a community with anyone that went to community college. And it's like, oh, it's a different world. Or I tried university once and failed because I didn't know, all these secret things about, different parts of campus to go to. And it's helpful to find someone that, can help you navigate these things that, first generation student would know either. And then finding someone with related interests, like, not just friends, but, someone, like I have a friend that, I shoot the breeze with, that I play chess with every week. It's not necessarily like they know more about, just general life things. And it's not, something I'm seeking something from them each time I meet with them, but it's also like they're, helping me learn chess. So I also want to talk about what a bad mentor looks like and a good mentor. So when you're looking for mentors in different parts of your life, what a good one and a bad one looks like, I might digress and end up blurring the lines of like directly, contrasting what a bad mentor looks like. But first, a bad mentor will, dictate at you, that it'll be, conversations will be very one-sided, that you won't have much input or dialogue, and you feel like they're just talking at you and telling you what to do. A bad mentor also will be overbearing, and I have unattentive, but you want to find somewhere a balance in between. An overbearing bad mentor would be someone that is, dictating everything you do, telling you what courses to choose, what programs to apply for, looking over your shoulder every time you, write a paper, and editing everything you do and micromanaging your life. That's not a good mentor. Also, someone who pays no attention to you and just sees you once a year and just says, here you go, and then next year they'll see you again. That's not really someone that is going to benefit you much when you have all these things happening in your life. You also don't want a mentor who's dismissive, someone that doesn't celebrate your accomplishments, someone who's like used to being, oh, another paper's out, or, oh, I got another grant, or, I got another stipend. And it's like, oh, I got like 6th co-author on this paper. This is incredible. It's the first time I got my name, published. You want a mentor that's going to celebrate with you. Like, there was a first time for them too. They just need to remember it. You also don't want a mentor who's patronizing, who treats you like a child and not the adult that you are, that you're growing in this field and you want, someone to help guide you as you grow. And you also don't want a mentor who marginalizes your identity, that dismisses, the barriers that are in place, and thinks that everything is equitable all the time just because maybe they think one way. And it's definitely try to get out of that trap. On the other hand, what a good mentor looks like is someone, especially in like a research position, sets clear expectations and boundaries, that you have a workload, that that there's expectations of like email response time. These are just examples, but in general, they're willing to work on these as well, that if they assign you a lot of work, that they're willing to reconsider depending, if it's not appropriate. So having these clear expectations and boundaries can be helpful in making a good relationship. A good mentor also listens as much as they talk. You want, as much as you may think that this is a one-sided relationship, it's a two-way relationship. You're helping them as well. This isn't just you're leeching onto this person and they're pulling you forward through your career. There's someone that's going to need to, well, usually it's prescribed by the departments, math departments, that people do a certain amount of mentorship, but also they get a touch on, where the field of mathematics is going, what the future looks like, what new ideas that can be brought to their field. Also, a good mentor builds you up and celebrates your victories, like I mentioned before. Like, these little things, or these things that may seem little to them now that they were once joyous about, they should be joyous about it with you as well. Since going to a conference, that's a big deal. Meeting people and presenting for the first time is, daunting, but getting the chance and opportunity is really something to celebrate. A good mentor will also defer or be willing to say, I don't know. So someone that thinks they know everything and is an expert in everything typically is not. You want a mentor who's willing to, entertain an idea and be willing to say, well, I don't really know much about, the class sequence here. I would talk to so-and-so. They're much more knowledgeable on this subject, that they're willing to try and find you the people to make your experience the best. And then a good mentor is also someone that's going to network with you, that they're not just going to hold their network, at bay and hold it over your head. Like, I'll introduce you to someone. No, they want you to meet as many people and work with as many people as possible, because I mean, that's the idealism of academia, is that we are trying to, learn from each other and help each other, and that they exemplify these kind of characteristics. Okay, so that's kind of abrupt. I meant to pause earlier and say that if you have questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom or top, depending on your screen, maybe on the left, I don't know. Start asking questions about the presentation, different situations that you might want us to answer as a panel. I will mention that the slides will be available after the webinar as well, because there were a lot of links. But yeah, please start asking questions in the Q&A, start upvoting each other's questions, take the time to try and, think of something that you may have a burning desire to ask about. So for the moment, we're I think gonna pause for a second, let people come with questions or concerns, and then try and answer it as a panel.
One thing from the chat that I wanted to draw everyone's attention to is somebody put a link to Budapest Semesters in Math is having an informational webinar in November. So there's a link about that webinar that's in the chat. And I attended Budapest Semesters in Math and had a great time, especially because there weren't a ton of upper level math courses at my school. So by the time I went as a junior, when I went there, it was like almost every class they were offering I couldn't have taken at my undergrad institution. So it really like broadened the coursework that was available to me. And I also had a great time meeting students from all across the country who had gone to this program.
I also wanted to mention that there will be representatives from a lot of the programs that we've mentioned at our conference, at the Rfam conference in a little over a month. So you can talk to them during networking lunches as well.
Okay, looks like we have a couple questions. One is from Carter, and is asking, love to study abroad and participate in maybe REUs, but I don't know where to start. There's a great list of different opportunities that were on the slides that Ashka was presenting on. There are, yeah, there's so many great sites that list them all, and that may be overwhelming as well. If you are within the United States, mathprograms.org has a lot of where you can apply to a lot of different places at once with one set of, letter recommendations and a CV or letter, different, resume. And we also host a workshop on how to apply as well later in the spring, but it's a good place to start, is start looking at, what are your interests in mathematics? Is it education, or let's say graph theory? Or if you don't know, then there's sometimes opportunities like Polymath Junior, which I participated in, where they have every type of field of mathematics almost, and that you can, have an opportunity to look at, first have like see little videos, and then, kind of try and choose what mentor you work under.
Yeah, I can try to add on to this. It sounds like, Carter, you are the exact kind of person who we want to come to Rfam, because that's where we'll talk more about all these opportunities, and you'll be able to ask questions of people who have done study abroad or RU programs, and people who run these types of programs. And in terms of where to start before the conference, I think that talking to a professor at your school is a really good place to start. In terms of just expressing your interest, they should know about these programs and be able to give you some individualized advice.
I'll answer the anonymous question here verbally real quick. Many RUs and research opportunities are restricted to undergrads and US citizens. That is true. One of the, because they're funded by the National Science Foundation, which has sometimes a restriction based on citizenship and locate and but there are many graduates like bridge programs where it's from after undergrad but before graduate school. I think there's also a great list that was one of the hyperlinks that was during Ashka's slides that had for international students as well. And then also I mentioned this already, and I'm biased because I was part of it, but Polymath Junior as well was an opportunity that was had opportunities for people who were across every level of mathematics and didn't require citizenship.
I can hop on and answer the question, or at least give a partial answer to the question about what is the MAA and what do they do. I'm Deirdre. I'm Senior Director for Programs with the MAA, and so I've been on staff now for a little over 2 years. Just sort of in a nutshell, the Mathematical Association of America is a professional organization that seeks to serve the math community. We are especially closely tied to undergraduate math programs. So students and faculty we have a strong interest in providing resources and support for students and faculty at undergraduate math institutions. But really, we're more broad than that. We want to be connecting with people who have interest in sort of broadly learning about mathematics and it's the way that it applies to the world. So we do have a lot of programs. This is one example of the ways that we try to partner with the community to offer programming and resources for the community. I'll put in the chat just the link to our website, and you can feel free to dig around some more or reach out to us if you have more questions.
And I think maybe I'll just answer this last question. I apologize. There's some closing notes as well, but do I need math tutoring experience in order to apply to teaching mentorship jobs? It is not strictly necessary to apply to any of these opportunities with teaching experience. Some will specifically be for teaching you how to become a good communicator of mathematics or how to, different teaching methodologies in mathematics. But I will say that, getting into where you're communicating mathematics is only a beneficial skill to have, but I don't think it's strictly necessary for anything. Okay, well, if there's no other quick questions, move to the last housekeeping slides, I would call them. So we have an invitation. Oh, thank you so much for the link to MAA programs. That's a great resource. Lastly, we want to invite you to our conference. We've mentioned it quite a bit. Put the networking skills we mentioned into practice at networking lunches. It's no risk. They're separated by different identities and backgrounds, to different career positions, to different opportunities that you're applying for. And some are just like general chat as well, and topics and fields of math. You can also ask questions about career building opportunities that you learned at panels, the discussions, the programs, and representatives from recent participants. So there'll be people who just went through an experience, and then also be directors of these experiences. So you get to hear kind of both sides of it as well, what they're looking for and how it was. And you also have a chance and opportunities to learn about math or areas of math that you can pursue research in. Again, you can go to our website and learn more about our conference in about a month. I want to thank you for attending. Please fill out the forthcoming survey from the MAA as part of the reach out after the webinar and try and we want to learn more about how we can help you.
I'll just add one more thank you to the organizers and to all of you for attending. Thanks so much.